So in today's video, we're going to focus on how to put texture on a patch that's already had the repair done, and we're going to blend it into the wall, into the existing texture. Then we're going to show you how to shoot texture, and then what to do with that dry texture before you paint. So we're going to talk about two ways to prep this floated wall after you've got all your knife work done and we've let that float dry. So this is all completely dry here. One way is to use just a 100 grit sandpaper, and then the other way is to do a sponge and do a wet sanding operation. So I'm going to show you here when we sand, you can see all the debris and what's ending up on the ground. That's quite a mess, and we really don't want to deal with that if we don't have to. So here's a preferred method that I use, and this is just my personal preferred method. But if you notice, the sanding works very well, but all-purpose drywall compound is water soluble. So by using a sponge and getting the sponge just not sopping wet, I've squeezed most of the water out of it. And as I go over it, I'm taking a little bit of that material off and blending it into the old texture. If I go around that whole surface and I eliminate that ragged line that's sitting around the edge, by wet sanding, I can get the same effect that I get from sandpaper with all the mess. And then I'm going to go across the whole surface once I've done the whole perimeter and blend that in and make it smooth as well. But it's that simple to do wet sanding, much easier than using sandpaper. So now we've got this all wet sanded. It looks good, it's smooth, it's blended into the texture that's all around it. So now we're going to work on the texture itself. We're actually going to shoot some texture. So I'm going to break away and I'm going to tape this off and I'm going to go get set up to shoot texture. And today we're going to use a brand new product from EZ Pro Texture. It's our new 20-minute fast dry mud. And you're going to see how that works and how in 20 minutes we're going to be ready to paint. So I'm just throwing some plastic over the top of this washing machine and dryer unit just to keep the texture from getting on top of the plants. Easy to wipe off, it's water soluble, but this is much easier than having to clean everything afterwards. So tape's really important too, because when you're applying plastic or some type of a paper to shield your appliance or furniture or whatever, always use at least the blue masking tape. Normal masking tape is more adhesive, more for boxes and things like that. You run the risk of putting that on a painted surface and peeling it off and peeling the paint or stain off with the paint. Never use duct tape, never use yellow masking tape. You want to use blue tape, which is more adhesive even than the orange tape. And then the highest level would be the green tape, which you can even use to cut in. It's specially made for that. So with masking off this washer and dryer unit, we're ready to spray. And notice I'm gonna spray in here a little bit of a tight area just to make that a little easier. Pull this out just a bit. You don't have to move it all the way over. Just need to be able to get a little texture in. I'm only about 3 or 4 inches behind this dryer. So today we're going to shoot this project with our EZ Pro Texture Gun. We also are going to use a brand new texture product. It's a powder mix that we're bringing out that's fast dry. So this project's going to dry in 20 minutes. But one of the important parts of using our texture gun and our texture is that you've got to set the compressor at 60 PSI with the air flowing. So if you notice here, I'm at 90, but when I pull the trigger, it drops to 60 because I've already preset it. When the air is flowing to 60, and notice it goes up. If I were to set it at 60 with a closed trigger and pull the trigger, it'd drop down 40, 30, and that's just not enough air pressure. 60 is where we want to be with the air flowing. So this is our new fast dry product. And this product has dry powder in it that we add water through this bigger spout, put the lid back on, and our lid actually has a spout on top of it to fit on the gun. So I'm going to take the second lid off top of our trademark spout, and I'm going to fit this gun right on top of the bag. This is already pre-mixed, ready to go. 60 PSI for orange peel. If you notice, this wall has orange peel on it, and that's what I'm going to match. So now it's time for us to spray the texture onto our repair. The first thing I'm going to do is check my distance. I want to start out about 3 feet from the wall, because if you're too close and you pull the trigger and you load it up, then you got to wipe it off, and that's possible, no problem, but it's a hassle. You start out here, it's like a shotgun. If it spreads out and then you have a little bit too fine, then step in to match the texture, but start at least 3 feet away. So we're going to start here, air first, then squeeze the bag, small circles. So see how my pattern is spread out, which is very much like what's on the wall. So I'm going to stay about this far away. So now I'm going to take this off. What's left in this bag is not usable because in less than 5 minutes it's going to start to get hard. So that's going to go in the trash. The next thing that's very important is that we got to clean this gun. The new product that I'm introducing to you is a fast dry 20-minute mud that if I leave this gun, it's going to be hard in just 20 minutes. So I'm just going to come over here to this bathroom lavatory, cup my hands, and blow just a little bit of water through it. And that's all it takes to clean the gun. Ready to go clean. So now we've got it all shot. We're going to give this some time to dry, and then once it's dry, we're going to come back and show you how to prep it before you paint. Okay, so now we're at a point where we need to prep this texture that we put on the wall about 20 minutes ago. This has already gotten hard. It's really important that when you go over new texture, or when you do new texture, that you run a blade over it and you skim off any high spots. And a good painter or a good drywall guy will do this across an entire wall with a large blade so that you don't get any imperfections of a small high spot in the actual texture or a little clump of something. This gets rid of all of that. And all I'm doing is I'm just skimming across it. I'm not scraping, I'm skimming across the top of the texture. I'm not creating knockdown out of orange peel. I'm just knocking off any high spots. Right away, just by doing that, it starts to look more even. Even when it looks like you don't need to do this, I recommend that you always go over your texture with a blade. And especially when you're trying to blend a patch into the wall, make sure it's perfectly smooth. So now, in addition to running a blade across the surface of my patch area and anywhere that I spray texture, I'm going to do something else that's going to really take this repair to the next level. And what that is that if you look at where you've stopped spraying and then you look at the old texture, there's always going to be a slight difference because you're spraying texture on top of texture. But there's a way that you can blend that in, and we use a wet sponge. And I'm just going to go around the perimeter and what I'm doing is I'm wiping away some of the little small fine cast-offs or overspray that occur when you shoot texture. It happens whether you're spraying it with an aerosol can, it happens if you're spraying with the Easy Pro texture gun, it happens even with your hopper. It's just the nature of the beast with texture. The outside perimeter are always the lightest drips, and they have a tendency to create a little fish tail type of situation where it's not a perfectly round drop, it's a long linear drop, and it looks poor when you paint it. You're getting rid of all that when you go around and you blend the new texture into the old texture, which is what I'm doing right here. The difference in doing this versus not doing is night and day. If you run a drywall blade across the surface of your patch after it dries and you run a sponge around the perimeter of it, you're going to get a pro result versus a not so professional result. So if you look at here, now we've got this circular pattern that is basically left after I've used the wet sanding in this motion, but you can almost see how the old texture blends into the new because we've wiped away that extra stuff that's laying on top of the old texture, and it just blends in and ramps in and becomes just one seamless wall, and the repair is now part of the wall. So you saw me prep the texture inside the area where we're doing the repair. Now we're going to do our painting, but we're going to use the Easy Pro Universal Mixer to mix our paint. Universal Mixer has a 1/4 inch quick connect that goes onto an impact. You can also push it into a regular screw gun and just tighten it down with a chuck, but this works really well. I'm going to push this down into the paint all the way down to where the two ends of the mixer are hitting the thicker paint on the bottom. And I'm not going to mix so fast that I splash, but I'm going to mix quick enough that I get a good mix here in this paint. And I'm going to lift it out here a little bit. You can see how much agitation occurs. This little plastic mixer does a great job of mixing paint, texture, hot mud, all that. The paint can doesn't have any solids on it. The paint's mixed well now. So I'm going to shake off as much as I can and scrape a little bit off even further. And then what's really cool about this, I hold this bottle of water over my paint can in case I get a drip or two, but I just shove this down inside the water bottle and I spin it And that's how quick I clean my mixer. I do a little bit of wipe it off, but that quick, it's ready to go back in the toolbox for your next project. Now I'm going to pour this paint in the pan. You can see how well it mixed it up. And I did not mix this with anything except that universal mixer. All right, let's go do some painting. We're back on our patch, run our sponge around it, we've run our blade across it. It's ready for paint. So I'm just using this small 3/8 nap roller so I can blend my patch into the wall, and it's thick enough that it pushes out enough paint that it covers up all the texture really well. Okay, so here we are at our finished wall. Today we came in, we had a floated wall that needed to have some wet sanding done. We got the wet sanding done. We came back, we shot texture. We used our new Easy Pro Fast Dry texture. That was ready to go in about 20 minutes. We came back, we did some blending. We scraped off the surface of the wall and we painted. All told, about an hour's worth of work, and there's our end result.
Hey, click here to watch videos on our other products and other instructional videos and how to use them.